Okay, so we'll begin then with a role play. We can do several. So I need you to volunteer to participate with me. Eventually, in the fullness of time, we could do it between a couple of you guys, and so you do it between you, and I just spectate, and then I comment afterwards. But we'll do it with me as one of the participants. We could do a job interview, or we could do hotel, booking a room, or we could do ordering a meal. What would you like to do? Suggestions?
Or we like ordering a meal. We did it like last time. I think I remember.
Yes. Okay.
And we could do the hotel thing. It will be fun.
Okay, that's fine. So, do you want to start, Anjali? And I am the hotel receptionist. So you're either phoning me, or you're calling in, and you want to, book something. So you speak, and then I'll try and respond as I think I should. Okay. Why don't we do it like a telephone? Pretend it's a telephone conversation.
Telephone conversation.
Yeah. So you call me. You call into the hotel, and I'll respond. All right.
Oh yeah, that will be.
Okay. So, dring dring, dring dring. So I pick up. Hello. This is the Glen Eagles Hotel here. Can I help you?
Hey, hi. I didn't listen the name of the hotel. What is that?
So this is the Glen Eagles Hotel and Country Club.
Okay.
It's very posh. We're very posh here, man. We're very posh.
Okay. I'm looking for a posh hotel. So I'm planning a vacation with a group of my friends. And okay, so do you guys book in advance, and do you guys give discounts and all? So can you please brief me about that?
Yes, we can make a reservation for you. What would be would the party be all staying for the same exact dates? Yes.
Yeah, the dates would be around Christmas.
Right, Christmas time. Yeah, no problem. That's some distance in the future, so we have availability. What's the party size?
We are like 6 people.
6. And are you sharing rooms? Is there any couples, or are you wanting separate rooms? What's the?
Yeah, we will be sharing the room.
Sharing the rooms. So so that's 3 rooms with 2 people each.
Yeah.
How would you like? Okay. Now, would you like standard rooms or deluxe? Or we do have suites as well. Would you look at standard rooms or deluxe or suites?
Okay, we would prefer the deluxe. Am I pronouncing that correct? We would prefer the deluxe.
No, we don't need to book dinner at this stage. I'm just trying to understand the standard room the standard of the room you would like. So we've got standard rooms, and then we've got deluxe rooms.
Okay, so I would prefer the deluxe room.
Good morning.
Hello, hi, Eo.
Hi.
We're just doing a role play here, Eo. So Anjali's booking 3 rooms for Christmas time in the Glen Eagles Hotel, and you want deluxe rooms, that's fine. Now it's going to be £350 a night. That's what the cost is for that. There may be a group discount. There might be a group discount since there's 6 of you. What date would you be checking in?
We would check in on the Christmas Eve, 24th.
Yeah, that's fine. 24th of December, no problem. And when would you check out?
We'll check out on 2nd of Jan.
2nd of January. Yep, I've got availability at this time all the way through. So let me just make the reservation. Now, what name would you like me to make the reservation under?
Okay, so do you want the name of all the guys, or like my name will do the work?
Yes, I just need your name to make the reservation.
Okay, so you can write my name as Anjali Singh.
Okay. Now I will need a credit card to make the reservation. Is that okay?
Okay, okay.
So
like, am I paying the whole amount?
No, you're not paying anything. We just need a credit card
Okay.
to make the reservation against.
Okay.
But you will not be charged until you're actually leaving.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So
I'll mail you my credit card details. Will it work?
no, we don't take. It's against our policy to have the card number sent by email, because it can be exposed that way. So I'd rather do it over the phone. If you would just give me the long 16-digit number on your card, please.
Okay, so it's 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. 11 12.
That's fine. And the expiry date?
12 24.
Okay.
The month would be December 24.
That's fine. And the three numbers on the back of the card?
It is 1 2 3.
Okay, I've got that. That's fine. Okay, now if I can take a note of your email address, what we will do is I can send you a brochure, and that will let you know what all the facilities are around the hotel. We have golf, and we have activities with horses. We can make recommendations on walking, and there's fishing. And we also have a spa and a pool as well. So you can just see what these things are, and then near the time you can actually make reservations for these different things. Does that sound okay?
So I have one more question.
Sure.
Do you guys provide the itinerary, and like, do you guys plan the whole trip?
No, we don't offer that facility. We can just provide the options that are available. But whenever you arrive, the concierge desk will be happy to guide you in terms of the different things that are on, and help you plan your trip in a bit more detail.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
So.
Okay, I have one more question.
Yeah.
There will be a child, and he is under 12, and he will be like visiting with us. So we are like 6 people, 5 are adults, and the one person is like under 18. So what is do you guys give some discount on that? Like, am I paying the whole amount?
What happens is you pay per room. So with 6, you will need really 3 rooms, won't you? And so you're paying for the room, and it's the standard rate, whether you got 1 person in the room or the 3. So the child, we can easily accommodate an extra bed for the 12-year-old, no problem.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Then.
I'll be looking forward to come there and spend my time with my family. Thank you.
Yes, I can guarantee you'll have a wonderful time at this hotel. It's probably the most famous hotel in Scotland. So there you go.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, I will send you a confirmation by email, as well as the brochure. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Miss Anjali. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay. So that was fine. The main thing I would say is we don't speak about others and say you guys, right? We would do that with friends. I would speak to you guys and say, hi guys, right? That's a very informal way of addressing a group. But you would never do that in a formal conversation with people you don't know. You never say you guys, right? So you're phoning a hotel, and I didn't do it very well, but because it's a posh hotel, I would speak very respectfully and very formally, and and so on and so forth. I'm not used to putting on a posh accent since I'm not posh. But in terms of your interaction with me, that was fine, no problem. You know, I didn't have any questions or faults to pick other than the informality. You were slightly too informal. Like no matter what standard hotel, we'd never speak about you guys. You guys would never say that, unless it was people you knew.
Okay, so like, what can I use? I was just asking the question, like, do you guys provide the the itinerary?
Yes. So how you ask that question is you say, do you? Do you? So we use the word you as second person singular and second person plural. We don't distinguish. So I could speak to you individually, Anjali, and say you. And I could speak to you as in the whole class and say you as well.
Okay. I could have used, does your hotel provide the itinerary?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So in English, in archaic English, they used to distinguish, and they used to say thee and thou. Speak about the second person singular. And we would say ye. Ye as in ye. Ye as in the second person plural. So in archaic English, we distinguished. But we don't do that. In modern English, we don't do that. We just say second person plural as you. Right? It's just, so you might say that's a fault in the language. Right? We don't distinguish that anymore. And because we don't distinguish it, people sometimes invent a word. And so like in Ireland here, where I'm sitting just now, people say use. So instead of saying you, if it's plural, they say use. or even worse, usins. And they say this in Scotland as well, usins. And people would also say what you said, which is you guys, if it's plural, you guys. But those are all slang and not words at all. You'd be slapped in the wrist for that in your English class, right? So. Now, let's see, does anyone else have any questions for Anjali or me, or did everybody understand that interaction? What about my Colombian girlfriends? How did you follow that? Did that make sense? Alida and Io, did that make sense to you guys?
Yes, sir. So I understand. So part of the speech of Angeli, that I missed the first part, so that's why I didn't understand quite what was like the beginning of the conversation, or what was like the initial situation. That what I hear, I think that was fine.
Okay, good. And what about the ladies from Iran? How did it make sense to you, Mona and Elham? Any questions?
I have no question, teacher. Thank you.
It was fine. I was thinking about the note you said about plural for you.
Yeah.
Don't you use you all?
No.
Or you people?
You would certainly say all you people. You could do that, but when you're saying the second person plural, in America they have a slang expression for that, which is called y'all. Y''all, y'all.
Yeah.
Now that is only really spoken in the south of America, and it is slang. It's not seen as good English.
It's not proper to use.
It's not proper. Yeah, it's not proper. But you know, they don't speak English properly over there, as we know. So that's a tongue-in-cheek expression. If I say something is tongue-in-cheek, do you know what I mean?
No.
Okay. So when I say something is tongue-in-cheek, It's like sticking my tongue in my cheek. See what I'm doing? I'm sticking my tongue in my cheek. And and we use that expression to say, I don't really mean it. I'm poking fun, right? So what I said was, they don't speak English properly over there, right? And I don't really mean that. I'm saying it tongue in cheek, which is a kind of a way of saying, I'm just poking fun. I don't really mean that.
I see.
You see? So
You don't really mean that, or you mean that, but you didn't want to admit it in front of other people.
A good question. I mean, strictly speaking, we can't criticize the Americans and say you don't speak proper English because you don't speak it like us, you know. But obviously, in Britain, the language comes from Britain, right? English is the language of Britain, and the Brits went to America and took the language with them 200 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sailed across the sea, and English has extended over there. And obviously, the same thing happened in Australia and in New Zealand and South Africa and these different countries that have been speaking English for many years. And as English has been, it's been somewhat autonomous, if you know what I mean. It's you know, in these different geographies, it's taken on a life of its own, and they say some things that we don't say, and we say things that they don't say. But the language is 99% the same. There is some variation in spelling. And in fact, what is interesting is there are expressions that we used to say that they took with them, and they continue saying them, but we changed, right? So, for example, the seasons: winter, summer, spring, and what's the fourth season?
Autumn.
Okay, you said autumn. And do you know what the Americans would say?
No.
They would say the fall.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see why they say it's the fall, because all the leaves fall off the trees. So they call it the fall. Now, we used to say that in Britain, because when I read a book that was written about the 1600s, I discovered they referred to that season as the fall. And the book was it was a book about the not Pilgrim's Progress. It was about John Bunyan. It was the biography of John Bunyan, who wrote Pilgrim's Progress. That's one of the most famous books in English, is Pilgrim's Progress. It was written in the 1600s. And it is the classic book to illustrate the concept of allegory. Let me write that word. That'll be a new word for most of you. So I'm going to pull up my chat and I'll write that word.
I know that word.
All right, I'll get you to explain it to everybody. Let me write it down for everybody. Allegory. Now, if you already know that word, give me a thumbs up. Just do a wee thumbs up on the thing if you know that word, and I'll see who knows the word. So there's one person knows that word. Then that's what I figured. I didn't think you would know that. Okay. So Anjali, since you know that word, you explain to everybody what allegory means, please.
Actually, I have read a concept of Aristotle. I think there was this thing, allegory of caves, you know, and he was talking about the allegory. I think, as far as I understand, it's about a story, maybe a hypothetical story.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, I'm right or wrong. So, do you want me to explain that story, allegory of caves? Do you want me to explain it?
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look it up online, and we'll look at the official definition. Then I'm going to give you Alan Lockhart's definition, and then we'll talk a little bit about Pilgrim's Progress. That's the way that we'll do it. So let me share my screen. Share my browser window briefly. So here you can see this window here. Let's put it in the front so I can see it myself. Right. So it says, a story, poem, or picture that can be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning, typically a moral or political one. Now, I did tell you that Pilgrim's Progress is the most famous, didn't I? And here we go. Pilgrim's Progress is an allegory of the spiritual journey. Okay. Now, if I go to, let's say, Wikipedia, let's see what they say. In the multitude of counselors, there is wisdom, by the way. So always look up things in different dictionaries and encyclopedias. And it's quite useful and helpful to look things up in American ones like Merriam-Webster, as well as British ones like Cambridge or Oxford. I always find that helpful. And between all of them, you get a very much more rounded view. And you get the full spectrum of definition, right? So in Wikipedia, it says this: a literary device, an allegory is a narrative in which a character, place, or event, this is turning this into Spanish here because I've got my Spanish word replacement on. I'm just going to turn that off. An event is used to deliver a broader message about real world issues and occurrences. Authors have used allegory throughout history in all forms of art to illustrate or convey complex ideas and concepts in ways that are comprehensible or striking to its viewers, readers, or listeners. Okay? So I think we've got good clarity there on that. Let me stop the screen share. And let me move to the gallery view. Okay, so an allegory is a story where it's clear that the story is all about something else, right? So Alice in Wonderland, you could say, is a bit like that, right? Pilgrim's Progress is a very serious one because it's about, well, let me explain the genesis of the story, which I think you'll find interesting, and then I'll explain what it does, and then we'll just move on to something different. So John Bunyan was a man who was in prison, right? He spent his life in prison, but he still managed to write 60 books. I think he lived till he was 60, so he wrote 60 books in his life, which is interesting. Pilgrim's Progress is the most famous one by far. He also wrote one called The Holy War, nothing to do with jihad, by the way. And different books, and I've read a few of them, as well as reading a biography of him, which is what got me onto that theme, because it's where I read the word fall, which I find very strange in a book about England, right? But they referred to the season there as that. And he lived at the time of Oliver Cromwell, and according to the book, he actually was rescued when he was a boy by Oliver Cromwell from drowning in a river, which is a very interesting little anecdote. Anecdote, right? Let me write that word. I'll come back to that word. An anecdote. Now, he was put in prison because he liked to preach, and in those days you weren't allowed to preach unless you were an ordinary person. You were meant to be licensed by the church, and he wasn't. And so he went around preaching, and because of that, he got put in prison. But when he was in prison, he had such a good rapport. Now, there's a word we've done in the past, right? Rapport. It looks like report, but it's spelled rapport. It's a French word. So rapport is means a trusted relationship. So when we started this class, I didn't have a rapport with any of you, right? You were all new to me and I was new to you. But within a class or two, we built up a rapport. Yeah. And so we all know each other now. We know each other by our first names, and we are in good terms. Yes, we are in good terms. We have a good working relationship, quite a close relationship, really. I feel I all know you guys pretty well now. Now, so John Bunyan also built up such a trusted rapport and relationship with his jailer that his jailer let him out of the prison at night, because he said, "You're not a murderer. You're not here for molestation or thieving or anything in here. You're here as a matter of conscience. And so I'm going to let you out, but you need to be back by 6 o'clock in the morning. Is that okay?" And John Bunyan said, "Yes." He said, "Yes, certainly, sir, I'll come back." And so he let him out at midnight or whatever, and he sneaked through the streets to his own house, and he would spend some hours with his children, who he wouldn't normally get to see. Now, he had a daughter who was called Rebecca, who was blind, completely blind. And he was trying to explain to her spiritual concepts, the kind of things you read about in the Bible, and that you know, he was trying to describe heaven, you know, and how would you describe something like heaven, the concept, to someone who's blind, right? And so he began to use very, very colorful language. And he talked about the delectable mountains. Now, delectable is a wonderful word, right? Delectable. Delectable means incredibly beautiful, right? Awesome, right? So he described, obviously no one knows what heaven looks like, right? But he tried to describe to his blind daughter this lovely land far away, which had delectable mountains, right? And that was his beginning of this idea of creating an allegory. He kind of invented it, really. And books weren't written before that. And so he ended up writing all these things down when he was in the prison. And that has become a classic in English, right? And it's called Pilgrim's Progress. And Pilgrim is the character in the book. And he describes things like, you know, going into a slough of despond, right? So we would call it like, you know, a dip, and getting stuck in this dip because he was despondent, he was down, you see. And he describes these experiences of being down, and he also describes other experiences where he was on the mountaintop. So what he's describing is the vicissitudes of life, but he does it in a very colorful way. Now that in total is an allegory, right? It's a picture, it's a story about something else, and it's used to illustrate it. So that's what an allegory is, okay? Okay, now what we also mentioned on the way through there was an anecdote. Now an anecdote is a little point told in the context of something else about that's maybe not directly relevant to the main thrust of a conversation. So I went to visit somebody this afternoon, and he's a very old man. He's 92 years of age. But as a little anecdote, I can just tell you he has the most incredible library. I mean, you should see this guy's library. I thought I have a big library, but this library was massive, right? It was filled the room, both sides, floor to ceiling, and his books spill over into other rooms and in the roof space of his house and everything. It's just, you know, it was quite incredible. So I'll just mention that as a little anecdote. You see, a little anecdote. It wasn't the main thing. I went to visit him to see how he was doing, but as a little anecdote, I'm saying that.
I didn't get that.
You didn't get that? Okay. Okay, so I'll explain it by a different illustration then. People would talk about anecdotal evidence, right? And what they mean by that is that they would make a point. They would make a point, and they would say, and let's say that point gets challenged. You see, so they might say, "Do you have any evidence for that?" And you could say, "Well, yes, I do. I have some hard evidence that what I am saying is true, and I'll share it with you." Or I could say, "No, I actually don't have hard evidence, but I've got some anecdotal evidence, right? Which is, I've heard bits and pieces, and if I pull those things together, it builds a picture in my mind that is clear, right? And so I believe it because I've got the anecdotal evidence, but it wouldn't be enough to convict somebody in a court of law. I don't have a conviction about it, to use a word that we've done another time as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Let's look up what anecdotal means, an anecdote. Let's look up that word together. Let me share screen again, share screen. And look up anecdote, right? This is a good word to know. It's not something esoteric. Have we done esoteric yet? An anecdote is a brief, revealing account of an individual person or an incident, a story with a point, such as to communicate an abstract idea about a person, place, or thing through the concrete details of a short narrative, or to characterize by delineating a specific quirk or trait. Occasionally humorous, anecdotes differ from jokes because their primary purpose is not simply to provoke laughter, but to reveal a truth more general than the brief tale itself. Now, I'm pausing, not for effect, but just to make sure that everyone had the chance to take that in. And I'm going to ask you, does that make sense? Let's look up in a dictionary, define anecdote. A short, amusing, or interesting story about a real incident or person. He told anecdotes about his job, right? So you might ask me about my job, right? And I can tell you some funny incidents. They're not all funny, but various incidents that have happened to me that are interesting, that are good conversation points. And I could keep you entertained for a few hours telling you about, I could tell you anecdotes about executives that I've met and decisions they've made. You would find it very interesting. But I'm not giving you full history. I don't even know the full history. And my opinion is perhaps biased because it's from my point of view. I don't know the whole story, but I could give you some fairly interesting anecdotes about what life is like working in a bank, since I've been doing that for the last 9 years. I could also say to you, and this is a true statement, a very true statement, I had an informal interview for a job last week. Not a formal one, but an informal one. And I told the chap I was speaking to a few anecdotes about meeting Bill Gates. And he was fascinated. One, that I'd met Bill Gates, and secondly, and what was he like? So I told him a few anecdotes about my interaction with Bill Gates. And he found that very interesting. And I could share these anecdotes with you guys as well another time, if you're interested. Now, are we getting our heads around what an anecdote is? I'm getting one thumbs up.
I have a question, so.
Go ahead, Anjali.
Okay, like anecdote means basically a story. So I have a doubt, like, is it a real story or like we are just making up the story?
No. So if I'm making up a story, I'm using an allegory. But if I'm telling you some real life incidents about things, but it's small, it's short, I'm giving you an anecdote.
Okay, so for example, you were saying that you participated in an informal interview last week, right?
Yeah.
and you were saying the story that you like, how did you meet Bill Gates, or like was that the interviewer? He was saying the story.
So it was a real thing. I'm relating a real event. I really did have an informal interview last week. Okay. And as part of that interview, I was relating my history, right? You know, I've worked in different companies, and one of the companies I've worked for is Microsoft. And at the time, he was the chief executive or the chairman. He was one or the other. But anyway, he's the most famous guy in IT is Bill Gates, right? And it turns out that I took my customer to Redmond in Seattle, not far from Vancouver, about 100 miles south, and they got to meet Bill Gates. Now, so that's all fact. I'm just relating fact. Now, however, I can tell you some interesting anecdotes about that visit. Like, I'll give you one. So Bill has written a book called Business at the Speed of Thought. That's it. Business at the Speed of Thought. Now, the customer was a large FMCG company. I'm going to not mention the name of the company. Since we make these things public, I don't know if I should do that. So I'm just going to say a very large FMCG company. You will all have heard the name of the company, right? So they would produce, certainly in the Western world, you know, more than 30% of the goods that are in the grocery store are from this company, okay? Very large. And they had people there from all over the country. And there was one guy from Colombia, of all countries, this is true. And he had a copy of that book written in Spanish. And he asked Bill Gates and said, would you sign my copy of your book? And Bill obliged. He duly signed the book, handed it back to him. And then he said, by the way, I hope that doesn't pop up on eBay next week. Since it's got my signature on it. And that was a very interesting little anecdote. The guy said, oh, no, definitely not. I'm going to cherish this book now, sir. That's true, right? Now, that's an anecdote. See, it's a little story about a wider story. It's an interesting anecdote.
Okay.
Right? So we've all got our head around what an anecdote is, right? Now, an allegory is not that. An allegory is not that. An allegory is telling a story about which is always made up. It's a made up thing, but it's telling you about something in real life, right? That's maybe difficult to communicate.
Sid, I have a question.
Go ahead, Iyo.
Here in Colombia, when we talk about anecdotes, also referring to some real stories that you can live, but sometimes could be funny stories. So in other countries also it's the same, or is just like a real story that could be something part of your life and that's it?
I need you to give me the question again because I didn't fully get the question, Iyo. So just give me the...
Yeah, the question basically, to make the long story short, is that if the anecdotes in other countries apart from Colombia also are referring to funny stories.
Right. So, first of all, I'm going to comment on something you said there, which is long story short. Did everybody else hear her say that? She said, long story short. Did you hear that? I heard it. That was very good. So
yes,
two thumbs up from Alan to Iyo for saying long story short, right? That's a very good expression to use in English, which means I'm not going to give you the long version. I'm going to give you the short version. I'm going to get right to the point, right? Long story short. Yeah. And not only can you use it like she did in relating something, you can do it in a question form, right? So I could say to Angela, oh, you're coming to Scotland in December. That's really good. I don't want to know all the details, but long story short, I'm now doing it as a question. What's the key thing you want to do? So I don't want the long version. I'm just asking for the short version. Okay.
Okay.
Now, I think what you asked me, I'm going to repeat, and I don't know if I've got it right yet.
Yes, Mr. So what I mean is that here in Colombia,
Yeah.
an anecdote also related to some funny stories. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my question is if this sense also is given in other countries, so or only referring to serious situation, as you told us, for example, that you worked in some banks and that stuff.
Yeah. So I've got the question now. I do understand the question. So what you said was, in Colombia, when you use an anecdote, you're always using it for humor, right? And you're asking, is that like that in different countries?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is, I can only speak about English language countries. I don't know about any other country in this regard. But in English, we would use an anecdote also for humor, but not always, sometimes. I would say most anecdotes are not humorous, right? But certainly, like it would be an expression to say, oh, he stood up to give an after dinner speech and he really related some very funny, actually hilarious anecdotes about what working in a prison is like, for example. Right? There you go. So you can use it for humor, but not necessarily. Is that clear for everyone? Has everyone got this?
Okay. Yes, sir. So that was my question because here also have the two meanings. Yeah? When you have like a humor story, but also when it's a serious story. But I didn't know, for example, if in England also is using that way.
Yeah. And another word that's quite interesting is euphemistic here, right? Euphemistic. And also we say a euphemism. Hopefully I've spelled that right. And that's where you want to speak about something that's difficult to speak about, and you don't want to be very explicit. For example, it might be sensitive to speak about death. Not in the normal context, but to somebody who's recently bereaved, you might want to use the word death. So you might say, instead of saying, when did a relative die, you might say, when did your relative pass away? That's a very trivial example, but pass away, you just mean when did they die, but you're using another word that's kind of softer, right? Or if somebody needs to use the bathroom, instead of saying they're away to the toilet, you might say they're away to make themselves comfortable. I'm just using different language, more polite language, to not be so explicit about something. That is called a euphemism, or I am speaking euphemistically. Does that make sense?
Yeah. In India, we use one more thing, like when somebody dies, we also say that he or she has expired.
Expired, yes. We wouldn't typically use that word, although we would understand that word in that context. You might use that word more in a medical context.
Yeah.
Right? The patient was on the operating theater and we were doing everything we could to try and save him. But after about 2 hours, he expired. You would use it in that context maybe, but we wouldn't typically say, my father has expired. We wouldn't say that. I would say my father has died or my father passed away. So Elham's asking a good question here. And what she asked is, can we say it means to say something sugar-coated? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Where something is not a nice thing to have to say or to communicate, and we're sugar-coating it, we're making it a little sweeter, more palatable to carry on the illustration. Yes, that's perfectly legitimate. Okay, so I think we managed to get quite a bit out of that little one. So let's do another one before we do more wider vocabulary. So who else would like to have a go at, we did a hotel booking. Will we do a job interview? Would that be good? Do you want to do an interview? Okay, I'm going to ask a different question. Who wants to do a job interview? But Angela, you've had a turn. You've had a turn. If nobody else volunteers, you can have a second go. But let's see if anybody else wants to be brave. Now,
Yes, sir, I will.
Shweta, you going to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good for you. I'm thinking of an expression to use here. Fortune rewards the brave. You heard of that? Fortune rewards the brave, right? So sometimes you've got to be brave in life, and you've got to get yourself out of your comfort zone, and that's how you grow. Like if I said to you guys, who likes giving speeches in front of an audience? I'll bet you there wouldn't be very many of you would say, oh yeah, I love to do that, right? Because naturally speaking, nobody really loves to do that. It's very difficult and it's hard to do it well. And so a lot of people are reticent, good word, reticent. They're reserved. They don't want to put themselves forward to do that. However, what I encourage people to do is push yourself out there, get out and do those things, even if it's uncomfortable, because it will really help you. In the workplace, all of you this evening are women. Sometimes we've had a few guys join, which is good, and I'd like it to be more balanced, but so be it. And sometimes women end up in a secondary place, right? And it can really help you to project yourself and your capability if you are willing to speak, to stand, and to communicate. And I certainly encourage all my staff where I work to speak, even if they don't have a natural inclination for it. I mean, I encourage them. I wouldn't force people if they really don't want to do it, but I would strongly encourage them, and then I would help them to get their talk together. And then when they've given their speech, I would give them constructive feedback. Here's how to do it, right? You could make this point, right? And I talk about, make sure you pause and make sure you eyeball, right? So I'm looking at you guys and I'm giving you good attention. You don't sort of look here, there, everywhere. You give the audience attention. And if you think somebody wants to ask you a question, if they're putting their hands up or they're itching, you can give them, yes, you have a question. So you can give them one-on-one attention. And that breaks up the room a bit. That breaks up the monotony of having to listen to you all the time. And then if they do ask a question, it sort of begins to engage the audience in what you're saying, right? These are just tips on how to speak and how to communicate. Because when you do communicate in a public fashion, this also happens in a job interview as well. You only have a few minutes to build rapport. Like people decide within 3 minutes whether they like you or not. You know that, don't you? Even if you might have a half-hour interview or an hour interview, within a few minutes, people are figuring out where your buttons are. Yeah. And they're thinking, what kind of person is this? Do they listen? Are they paying attention? Are they really bored or looking at their watch and just can't get to this thing's over, right? All this is happening very quickly. And so in an interview situation or in a speaking situation, you want to make sure that you grab the attention of the audience, like command it, you know, and then follow through with the things that your points you want to make. And then as you get to the end, you want to summarize and recap, where you go over the main points again, the things that you want them to take away. The key takeaways. You might be speaking for half an hour, but no one's going to be able to repeat verbatim what you said for half an hour. But you want them to be able to remember the main points are 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And if you can give them little anecdotes, here's a good point. If you can give them little anecdotes to illustrate those points, then it helps them to remember what you said. Yeah. So let's do a job interview. Shweta, you're coming to apply for a job that I'm advertising as a software engineer working in a bank. Now, you know about software engineering. You do some, you're at college, you've done 1 year or 2 years, 1 year, I think. So you know what that is. I'm not asking you to talk about something you don't know. So we're going to start this interview, and we're going to start this interview by me welcoming you, and I'm going to look at your CV. So this is not a telephone meeting. This is a face-to-face meeting. Pretending well, it's going to be a short interview, yeah? It's going to be a short interview, right? So, hello, Ms. Shweta. Very pleased to meet you. Thank you for coming to our offices.
Thank you so much for giving me opportunity, sir.
Great. Now you're applying for this role of a junior software engineer in this team, which is an innovation team in the bank that I run. And one of the things that we really looking for is people who are very adaptable and willing to learn new things and new technologies, because there's new technologies in the computing and technology space all the time. So I want to quiz you on that. But before we do that, I want you just to give me a bit of a background on you. Tell me about your education. And I want you just very briefly to tell me about your aspirations, where you see yourself going in the future. And then the last thing I want you to do by way of introduction is tell me why you think this role is the right one for you. So give me a little bit on your history, a little about your aspirations for the future, and then why you think this role is the right job for you.
Okay. So I passed my school with very good marks, and then I thought that I should go for computer science because I found my interest towards this field. So this is the reason why I'm trying to get the job in your company, and yeah, and my qualifications are also I did C programming, and I have good command on that subject, and I want what I say. Yeah, I want to work with this company because I feel that I will get more opportunities to work with intellectual or experienced people who are working there. So it will be beneficial for me, and it will provide me lots of opportunities to explore myself. And yeah, this is why I'm trying to got this job. And I saw myself after a few years as a good worker, as a I want to I want to give some good contributions towards myself to the company for its progress in the market.
Okay. All right. Now, can you tell me, are you a problem solver? Do you like solving problems?
Yeah. If I will get, I will try to do better in everything that company gives to me.
And are you curious?
Yeah.
And can you give me an example of that, Shweta, please?
So I know that now I'm beginner for this company and new for this company. So later, if I will get some new things that I think about that things I have no idea. But if anyone guides me and if they provide me some stuffs to regarding that, then I will try to do better or try to perform as company wants from me. So yeah, I will try my best.
I'll be about half an hour. You go ahead. Okay, Shweta. Have you heard the expression "je ne sais quoi" before?
No, sir.
No? Okay, that's no problem. Well, let me ask you this then. It's hard in an interview situation to really understand if people are in some way special, because I've just got you for, say half an hour right now. So it's hard to really understand that. So what I'm trying to just get a handle on is there something special about you that would make you stand out from all the other candidates? I have about 20 odd candidates interested in this job. It's really competitive. And so what I need to understand is there something that distinguishes you that would make you first among equals, so to speak. So can you give me, first of all, a sense if you think that you are special in some way, and can you give me an illustration of that from your experience?
Okay. So I will give some examples also. So first of all, I found myself as adaptable, adjustable, and limitless. I can say these things. Yeah, I can say these things because in my school days, I was I was not in. I was not a player or any. I'm not playing any sports. But when my teachers asked me for participating in a sport, then there is no. I can say that there is no players who are ready for participating on that tournament. So it was like do and die situation, and then my teacher requests me to participate on that, and I know that I will not be good in that, but still I tried my best, and fortunately we won that match. So I found myself that I can do everything if yeah, either the situation will hard or soft, it doesn't matter. If I thought that I will do, then yeah, I make everything possible. So this makes me a little special or unique.
Okay, very good. Okay, well, listen, our time's up, unfortunately, on that interview now, but I want to thank you for your time and let you know I'll be in touch once we've completed the rounds of interviews with all the other candidates.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Nice,
Bye-bye.
nice to talk to you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we can come out of roll now. So you did well, Shweta. Thank you for that. First bit of feedback I'll give you, which is a real piece of feedback, is in an interview scenario, you want to smile, right?
Okay, sir.
You are very serious, very serious. You had your serious face on, right? And in an interview, if you look like you're happy and enjoying yourself, then it's very hard for the interviewer not also to be happy. It's infectious. Okay. By the way, that applies on the phone as well. See if you're happy on the phone. If you smile down the phone line, people can sense that. Don't ask me how it happens. It happens. Right. And if you have to give a very serious phone call, you get on your feet and walk about, because people can sense that. I don't know how, but it's the sense it, right? You know, if you're really serious and you want to make a point, you stand up to make the point. You don't do it sitting down, right? Right? So you do that. If you have a really serious call, you need to make, you get on your feet and answer, right? And in an interview, you want to not be smiling like a Cheshire cat. You all learned this, right? A Cheshire cat, right, is a big cheesy smile. You don't want to be smiling like that all the time, but you definitely want to flash your smile. You see, you pause and you smile, and make the other person feel that you're enjoying the process. You're very happy. You're very comfortable in this situation, because, you know, if you get this interview, you're going to be working, right? So, and you're going to be working for me. So you got to make me feel comfortable with you. And you do that by communicating indirectly that you're comfortable and you're comfortable with the questions. Now, we did do je ne sais quoi a while ago. Who can remind Shweta what je ne sais quoi means? Let's remind ourselves, first of all, literally verbatim, that's a French expression that has been adopted into English. What does it mean literally? Anyone? Anyone remember that?
So you are asking the meaning of literally.
Yeah. Je ne
It's
sais quoi.
genuine,
What does it mean?
genuinely. The synonyms of literally is like genuinely or actually.
Literally, what does it mean, first of all? Literally, what does it mean? Anyone?
You are asking about je ne sais quoi, right, sir?
Yeah.
I'm not able to recall that right now.
All right. I'll remind you all then. It means literally, I don't know what. I don't know what. Je ne, I don't say no what. I don't know what. And so when we say je ne sais quoi, it means I don't know what. And so if I say about a person, if I'm passing comment or remarks about someone, and I said they are je ne sais quoi, use it like a noun, right? They are, right? Describing, what's a describing word? An adjective. Use it like that, right? She has je ne sais quoi. What I'm saying is she has I don't know what. Which means I'm saying I don't know how to describe it, but I'm saying she's special. Like she's very special. Right? So what I was going to ask you, if you had remembered what it meant, was I was going to ask you, do you have je ne sais quoi? Right? I was going to be a very direct question. So I asked you in a different way, but I got to the same point by saying, what is it that makes you special? Okay?
Yes,
So,
sir.
yeah. So I want you to remember that expression. It's a very good expression. It's French. Some of the most sophisticated words and expressions in English come from other languages, right? We borrow them, we steal them, we call them loan words. And so there's Latin and there's Greek. And we did that last week. Do you remember we did ignoramus? Do you remember? And we did agnostic, which is a Greek word. So that's Latin and Greek. We've done veni, vidi, vici in the past, right? Which is Latin for I came, I saw, I conquered, right? And so we also have done vox populi, vox deo, remember? Remember about 3-4 weeks ago we did that. The voice of the people is the voice of God. Yeah, these are powerful expressions and good to know. And because you don't use these kind of words every single day in life, you know, get your list. You'll all be building up a list of words, right? And go over it again, just and remind yourself. And then as you've reminded yourself, it'll come back in. Oh yeah, I remember that one now. Yeah. And then some of you already do this, but as you're responding to homeworks, use stuff not just from this week's homework, right? Go back and use a word you've used for 3 weeks, haven't used for 3 weeks. But the fact that you're recalling it and writing out that word again will bring it back into mind. Yeah. So overall, you did very well, Shweta. Well done. My main feedback, which is real, genuine feedback, not just on English and how you speak, but you don't want to be so serious all the time, right? Although it is a serious situation, you want to try and, like, if this was a real situation, I would have said, now take your time. I want you, you know, obviously we're short of time here. We're not really taking half an hour to interview you, but I would take steps to put you at ease. You know, I would ask about your family. I would ask where you come from, which part of India you're from. I would ask you a bunch of questions to make you feel comfortable. Because people in interviews need to be comfortable, because it's difficult, because there's a lot riding on an interview, right? At the end of the day, someone's going to make a decision whether to hire you or not. It's hire or fire, right? So it's quite serious. People take the interviews really serious. And if you are doing interviews, and all of you will do interviews, right? Whether it's at university or your next job or the promotion in the job you're in, you need to take it very seriously, because you want to present yourself in the best light possible. And and you want to come over as confident without being overconfident. You want to be confident, but not overconfident, right? Not assumptive. You can't assume you're going to get this job, but right? And so the way that you get yourself comfortable in the interview is by being as prepared as you can be, trying to anticipate the questions. And yeah. And you know, but no matter how much preparation you do, you know, you can never guarantee to get that interview, right? You just don't know. You know, the guy who's interviewing you or the girl, she might be having a bad day, right? So, you know, or there might be just no chemistry. There's just no chemistry, right? I just can't see myself working with this person. I'm not going to give them a job, right? Or there might be a real chemistry, right? Oh yeah, I really can see this person working for me. I quite like their attitude, yeah. And it's amazing. These decisions are made all the time in life. So interviews are important. Okay, actually, we've actually gone for over an hour. I've actually lost sense of time there. So it's actually an hour and 20. So I'm wondering about maybe wrapping up today and just have a bit of a shorter lesson. Hopefully that was useful. We didn't cover a huge number of words. I'm wondering, yes, Shweta, go ahead.
So generally, in interviews, interviewers are just trying to get the points from the interviewers or the person who came for the interview. That they just try to make them to say the same things that they want to hear.
Yeah.
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 So did I do the same thing?
Yeah.
Or my answers are totally different from your aspects?
I think, no, it was fine for a first attempt, but I would say you need more practice.
Okay, sir.
And I would say to everybody, I mean, if any of you are genuinely doing an interview, like schedule some time with me one-on-one and we'll practice, right? And I'll pretend, I'll put on my really serious face and we'll do an interview together, right? Because it's what helps, right? It helps in the multitude of counselors, there is wisdom, right? That's a very important statement, right? In the multitude of counselors, there is wisdom. So you should talk to lots of people if you're, say, applying for a job. Like, talk to someone who's in the job. What's it like? What are the good points? What are the worst points? You know, get as much information as you can, and practice more with people. Practice with a male, practice with a female, because they come over as different, right? A female talking to a female is just different from a guy talking to a female, right? Just different. So get experience with both, and it will help you. The more practice you do, and the more difficult questions you get, the more prepared you are to answer. Because in general, when you prepare for an interview, you will know how to answer the aspiration question, right? And what do I want to be when I grow up? That question, right? And the awkward one, which is, what have you done that's failed? You know, that question. You know, you need an answer for that, and sometimes you need more than one answer. You need an answer and a backup answer. You know, and you need a few things that you're going to cite, and make sure that you don't keep going back to the same example all the time. Like, I've seen people in interviews and they talked about the same scenario 3 times to 3 different questions. You know, right? That's very bad, right? So that if you practice, you'll get more comfortable and you'll get better at it. And it's an art. It is an art, right? Doing interviews. So that's an offer for everybody on the team. Practice. So you can practice with each other. You can practice with me. Like, it would be really easy for example, you and Anjali, for example, to trade some time, you know, practicing interviews. Dead easy. Yeah. So I'm wondering, Western class, EO and Alida, if you guys would mind terribly if we cancelled the Western class today, this week, since you're both managed to make on this one. Would that be all right?
So I don't know, teacher, because I was here, so I'm here because I have like a free time. But if you did the class in the afternoon, I also can be there. But I don't know, so it's up to you, teacher.
I'm just wondering about maybe cancelling it this week, not permanently. I mean, just this week, since I'm on holiday and since I got you guys here. I know Alida's not being able to take part because she's in the office, but would you mind if we just cancel that class today and just have one class today? Would that be all right?
Yes, teacher is right. So I don't have any problem.
Okie dokie. So I'll see you all next week, and I'll see you on the forum. I'll be a bit more active next week, just because I'll be freer than I've been this week. I've been too busy eating.
Excuse me. So I have a suggestion.
Yeah, go ahead, Anjali.
Actually, the interview practice was like very, what do you say? It was like very helpful. And next week, you know, we can like pre-plan it, like 1 or 2 participants, we can pre-plan it, we can prepare the questions, because Shweta was not prepared this time. She did it.
Yeah.
So we can pre-plan it, and you can like ask the questions, and that would be fun.
No problem.
So there is a scope for improvement also.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted, we could do an interview every week, you know, for a while, until everyone has had a go at that. Because
that's,
I mean, you're going to be doing interviews your whole career, right? I mean, I am interviewing at the moment for a job, you know. You know, even if you work with one company for a long time, you do interviews to get other jobs in that company. It's good practice, good experience. And it also increases self-awareness, which is something we'll talk about another time. It's a very important concept, which people who come into the workforce are often not self-aware, right? By which I mean, they're not conscious of how they're coming over in a meeting. They're just being themselves. They're in the moment, but they're not actually almost looking at themselves and saying, how am I coming over in this room? You know, and becoming self-aware in a true sense is a very important thing, you know, in life. So we can talk about that. We'll talk about that another time. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you so
We'll leave it there for today. Nice to see everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
so much, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.